What do you say to owners that say, but I have never seen a flea on my pet, so why should I use this treatment?
It happens every day.
I know.
Especially with cats, I would say, and especially in cats that live indoors, because we treat a lot of flea allergy in cats that live indoors. Because even if they don't go outside, you can bring parasite inside. And usually when the cat has fleas, he will manage to leak and to eat the parasite. Nevertheless, the fleas will have time to reproduce, to make egg, and to put a new cycle on. So even if you don't see the flea, there are fleas, and they will be able to create a reaction in your animal.
Today on the Paws Effect Podcast, I'm joined by Dr. Amaury, a board-certified specialist in veterinary dermatology. If you've ever had a pet who scratches non-stop, chews their paws raw, or constantly has red, irritated skin, you'll know just how worrying and exhausting it can be, for both them and for you. He's here to give us a guide through itchy skin in pets, what's normal, what you can manage at home, and how your general practice vet can help, and when it might be time to see a specialist. We'll cover everything from flea and tick control to allergies and the role of seasons and why humidity, moisture, and sunlight can make such a difference. By the end of the episode, you'll have a clear understanding of what is acceptable, what is manageable, and when you need to get some expert help for your pet's skin. Let's get started. Let's start at the very beginning. Every pet scratches sometimes. It's normal. We see them doing it. But how would owners know when itching has crossed the line from normal to something that they should worry about and they need to seek vet attention?
For sure, the cats and dogs can scratch and lick themselves. It's part of the normal behavior. But once the owner notices that it takes too many, episodes in the journey or too much time, and that the cats and dogs have a behavior that is changed because of that, it can be a good reason to go and see the vet. Especially when people come to me, they notice that the dog or the cat cannot sleep properly anymore, that they feel a bit depressed on top of the pruritus, and that that the dog is constantly licking the paws, for instance, or the flank, or he will stop to play, to scratch himself. That is not a normal behavior. So it should mean that there is a problem and that the pet owner should go to the vet.
And why would you say it's such a common condition? Why is itching such a common trait that we deal with as vets?
I think that it's because a lot of disease will affect the skin and the hair. And also it's something that is very easy to spot and to see. So that's why dermatologic disease is, and itch specifically, is one of the top consultation motivation. And it's maybe, the cause it's maybe because the skin is the barrier between the outside and the inside. So it's the first layer that is concerned when there is a problem. And the skin is exposed to a lot of stuff outside. It can be parasites, it can be toxic, it can be polluant, etc. So I think that it can cause itch, and maybe that's why the itchy problem are so, something very oftenly observed in our pets.
Absolutely. And I mean, this is something that can actually affect, as you said, their quality of life and even their behavior. So what are the kind of common things that owners talk to you about and explain when they are talking about this differential?
Usually, it's funny because when people arrive in consultation, they say, he's scratching himself, so there is pruritus. And sometimes when I ask them if there is pruritus during the consultation for another problem, they say no at first. But when I dig a little bit and I say, oh, does the cat or the dog lick himself? They say, yes, yes. And so I say, okay, so that is pruritus. Is the cat or the dog looking for, furniture to rub himself or I don't know the good word in English, but they say, yes, you're absolutely right. So sometimes the expression of pruritus is not well known in cats and dogs owner. And sometimes it's the role of the veterinarian to help the owner to know what is the pruritus and what is the clinical expression of pruritus. So my advice would be for the owner that, okay, you can see that your dog is having pruritus when he's scratching himself, but licking is another way of expression of the pruritus. So it could be a good sign of pruritus and a good reason to go to the vet.
Absolutely. And what are some of the signs of itching beyond the scratching, the licking, the chewing, the rubbing, as you've described, that owners may overlook? Some of the consequences, perhaps.
One of the reasons that dermatology is so cool is that you can see easily the lesions that are made by the disease or made by the pruritus. You will see alopecia, so a loss of hair. You can see an abnormal coloration of the skin. So usually you will see redness. So it's called erythema. You can see crust. You can see papules. You can see a lot of different kind of lesion. But for the pet owners, I think that one of the major lesion would be alopecia, so hair loss and crust, and also something that you won't have it visually, but they can smell the bad odors of the animals. If there is a skin infection, sometimes I had a case last week. The presentation was just, my dog has a bad smell. I don't know what's happening. I cannot stand it anymore. The fur is he's very smelly, so I need to know what's happening. And the dog had a bacterial pyoderma consecutive of an atopic dermatitis. And it was funny because the main complaint was not the visual or the pruritus or the lesion, it was the smell.
That's incredible. I like how owners pick up different things, and it always surprises, yes, particularly with the ears, and we'll go down that route at some point, hopefully. But so let's talk about the normal skin. Let's talk about a pet potentially that hasn't seen us because of bad skin, but owners want to prevent any skin issues. They want to look after it. Can we talk about some of the things that us as pet owners may want to do from maybe a nutritional perspective and a preventative healthcare measure to look after skin?
So if you want to look after the skin, we can begin with the nutrition, with the food. Of course, you have to give a good food with all the nutrients that will help the skin to be in good health. So nowadays, with all the veterinarian laboratory that had developed food, we have a lot of choice, and it's very important to follow the advice of your veterinarian and not the advertiser food product that will promise you a lot of good stuff. No, you have to listen to the veterinarian, because we use food that have proven to be efficient to deal with numerous diseases, but also with healthy skin and healthy animals. So I would recommend to use that. If you feel that your animal have a skin issue or have a skin that can be a little bit fragile, you can use some specific food for skin. So on top of the food, we can use supplementation, which will help the skin, the hair to grow properly, and at the end, you will have a very good nutrient intake for the skin. Other stuff that can be done is to prevent all the parasitic disease like ectoparasites, fleas, ticks, that will, harm the skin, and that will be a source of a reaction, inflammatory reaction. It can be a source of pruritus, of allergy. So it's better to prevent that to treat. So I will always recommend in healthy dogs or in dogs with atopic dermatitis, for instance, to have a good flea and ticks treatment for the prevention of that kind of disease. And also another thing that I love is the topical treatment, like shampoos, moss, wipes. Usually people are afraid of doing too much shampoo, like they say, oh, I've been told that you should not wash your dog and that shampoos are not good for the skin health. And I say no. You can shampoo your dog, you can wash your dog. If it's needed, it can help. And sometimes some dogs need like one bath per month, one shampoo per month, or other it's like once a week. It depends on the dog, on the way of life, on the texture of the skin and the hair. And sometimes just the fact that they will do shampoo or other topical treatment like often, it will prevent the development of skin infection. So it can help a lot. Other than that, not much to do, huh? If your dog is healthy, have a good food and good health care routine, it can be right.
Sounds good.
You look at me, I look at you, I see the love in your eyes. I'm lost.
Health you can see, love you can feel. Ultrapet, the science of love.
So let's go into those categories a little bit deeper. Can you help us just unpack a couple of terms that owners may not be aware of? The hypoallergenic diets versus the novel protein diets, and then the skin diets that are, again, that you made mention in normal dogs. Can you give us a bit more information about them and
Okay.
which owners should use based on sort of what kind of pet they have?
So actually, the hypoallergenic food is done for the research of food allergy. If you want to diagnose food allergy, the only way to do so is to give your dog hypoallergenic food during 1, 2, or 3 months, and to see if the clinical sign like pruritus, erythema, decrease or disappear with the new food. The best food to do that is the food that we call hydrolysed protein food. So it means that the protein that are in the food are processed, and they are cut in very short pieces, like almost the amino acid piece. And so the immune system won't be able to recognize the potential allergen and to do an allergic reaction against the food. But it's a very specific stuff. So some dogs that are allergic will need to stay on this food all life long, and it's not a problem. If the dog is not allergic, or if you just want to manage skin issue or sensitive skin, you can choose a skin nutrition, like so food that are supplemented in a specific element that will help the skin. So you can find it in your clinic, your veterinarian clinic. And as for the novel ingredient food, sometimes it can be used if you don't want to use the hypoallergenic food, but you want to see if there is a specific ingredient that can make your dog react. So imagine that you have made the diagnosis of food allergy in your dog, but you would like to try another food. So the fact that you will use a food with one novel protein source can help. And you can see if the dog will react or no. So if it's no, you can continue and it can help. As for the diagnosis in itself, it can be a little bit tricky because sometimes in the food it says novel ingredient, like your dog, I don't know, like kangaroos or like some weird meat origin. But you have to be careful because some studies have shown that in that kind of food, we have found trace of other protein. So it means that it says that in your food, you will find only like turkey, for instance. And when you do the molecular analysis, you can see that you will have beef, trace of beef or pork. So if your dog is allergic to beef or pork, he will react to this food. So it will give you false answer.
And why do these diets have to be fed exclusively? And how do you deal with the fact that owners still want to treat their pets?
So you have to be careful with that because, and I always say that to the owner, so you have to stop everything else because it's like people that are allergic to peanuts. So if you have a trace of peanut in your food, you can have a big reaction and it can trigger some clinical signs that you don't want to have. And it's the same for the dog. So of course, the clinical sign won't be as harmful as for peanut allergy, but it can trigger pruritus, erythema, even in small dose. So that's why if you want to treat your pets, you have to use hypoallergenic treats, and some food industry laboratory does the hypoallergenic treat. So I'm happy with that.
That's great advice. So let's go to tick and flea prevention. There are obviously several products on the market, and we don't need to go into the specifics of it.
Yes.
But is there, and some of the questions I get asked, is it important to rotate through those? Is there any resistance form to these? Why is it that owners find, for example, that 1 year their pet will do very well on one particular product, and then the next year they're just not doing so well? Is there an importance of rotating, or is that just a perceived kind of issue?
As far as I'm concerned, I think it's perceived because when you talk about that with a parasitologist, they say that there is no resistance that have been described. So for few molecules like old one, and especially with topical treatment, sometimes we have the feeling that the period of action will be shortened. Like especially for fleas, we can see that some products that used to be very efficient, like 20 years ago, are less efficient or have a shorter time of action. So for people that can have this feeling, it can be interesting to change, like maybe to put some topical treatment, some oral medication or some collar, and to change it during the year. But scientifically, there is no proof that it can be interesting. So the only interesting stuff to do is to adapt the antiparasitic treatment with your way of life. For instance, in France, especially if you live in the south of France, it's important to protect your dog against the risk of leishmaniasis. So you have to give an antiparasitic treatment that will be efficient against fleas and phlebotom. So you have to choose a repulsive treatment. So I don't know in your country or area if there is such a difference of parasites, but
No.
in France, you have to be careful if you are in the south or in the north. It's not the same burden of parasite.
That's incredible. And what do you say to owners that say, but I have never seen a flea on my pet, so why should I use this treatment?
It happens every day.
I know.
Especially with cats, I would say, and especially in cats that live indoors, because we treat a lot of flea allergy in cats that live indoors, because even if they don't go outside, you can bring parasite inside. And usually when the cat has fleas, he will manage to leak and to eat the parasite. Nevertheless, the fleas will have time to reproduce, to make eggs, and to put a new cycle on. So even if you don't see the flea, there are fleas, and they will be able to create a reaction in your animal. So I always say in consultation, you see, I speak about flea. I tell you that your animal have flea, but I don't even look for flea on your animal, because I'm sure that if the animal hasn't a proper antiparasitic treatment, he has a lot of risk to have fleas. Sometimes, miraculously, I see fleas running on the skin, and I'm very happy because people believe me.
It's a lot easier if you can visualize it.
Yes.
So what is it?
Yes.
What is it about fleas that causes the irritation?
When there is a flea infestation, the skin reaction is due to the saliva of the flea, which contain a lot of allergens. So every time the flea will bite the animal will react to the flea saliva. And some can develop allergy. And the typical sign of skin allergy with flea reaction is pruritus, very intense pruritus, and hair loss, and typically in the dorsal and lumbar area, and also on the external side of the thighs. So if your cat or dog is scratching and nicking on the back and on the at the base of the tail, you should suspect flea reaction.
That's really great advice. Now, the shampoos, I'm really interested because one of the questions I get asked a lot is, okay, I need to shampoo this dog. Not only maybe are they smelling bad, but in South Africa we get rain and they're muddy and they run around in the garden. Let's talk about just the average dog, because I know that you will give particular advice if there is an underlying skin condition with medicated shampoos. But what shampoos? Why is it important to select the right kind of shampoo and not use the one that you've got or you use for your own hair? And then how frequently, with people who are concerned about oils and things, can you take us through the advice on that?
So I think that it's important, first of all, to use veterinarian products or products that are made for dogs specifically, because the skin of the dog is not the same as our skin, especially for the pH of the skin, and also the composition of the microbiota and the oil composition. So it's very important to respect this parameter. And so the shampoos that are made for cats and for dogs, are very specific. So it's important, if you use often or regularly a shampoo for your animal, that you use a specific product. And for the good use, I think maybe it depends, but once a month can be a good time frame. Yes. So as for the periodicity, 1 month, every 1 month could be a good time frame for the shampoos. So if the dog is just in good health and he's a bit dirty because he lives in a town and he's a little dog, or he's a countryside dog and he loves to go in the mud, you can do it even once a week if it's needed, but once a month is okay.
So can you overwash your dog? I
think yes. If you use shampoos every day, of course, it's too much. And sometimes, I see dogs that have contact dermatitis. So it's like a skin reaction with any product that you will apply on the skin. It can be cream, it can be shampoo, for instance. And you never know what will be the product that caused this reaction. It can be antiseptic, it can be emollient, it can be a lot of stuff. So my advice when someone suspects that there is a reaction is to stop any shampoo or any stuff that is applied on the skin. So it's not very often because people usually they don't overwash because it's time consuming and they are aware of the fact that the skin must be respected. But if it's the case, I would recommend to stop and to try another product.
That's really good advice. And what is the actual benefit of using these shampoos in terms of trying to manage a pet, for example, with itchy skin?
So when you wash your dog, you will clean, of course, the skin and the hair. And by doing so, the important stuff is that you will remove the skin debris. And on the skin debris, you will find a lot of bacteria, for instance, that can cause harm if it's developing too much. And we can see that in case of atopic dermatitis when you know that the skin microbiota is imbalanced, which means that there can be too many bacteria on the skin. So when you use the shampoo, you remove all the dirt, you remove the overpopulation of bacteria, you can remove the allergen that the dog will attract with all the hair. Of course, if the dog is sensitized to an allergen, the fact that there is hair everywhere, it will maintain the contact of the allergen on the skin. So the fact that you will wash it will remove all these elements. And if the dog has imbalance on the skin that makes the skin too greasy, or the hair too greasy, shampooing your dog can help a lot.
Great advice. And in terms of the general environment, let's start with outside. What impact does UV light and humidity and rain and moisture and dogs that love to swim have on these pets?
So UV light, it can cause harm, like for us. So be careful if your dog likes to sunbath, especially on the back and with the belly with no hair at all exposed to the UV, you have to protect it. You have to protect it because we can see, like in human, we can see skin cancer provoked by UV, not especially melanoma. It's not something that we see a lot in dogs associated with UV, but more like carcinoma. We can see also that in cats. So if your cat is white or have a whitish color, be careful with the ears and with the nose, because there are areas that are very sensitive to carcinoma development. So if your cat loves sun, you have to protect it with like us, with a good sun protection. As for the other environmental factor, it's interesting because recently there was a study on atopic dogs that showed that, in atopic dog, we can see a seasonal evolution of the clinical signs, which means that usually in spring or summer, the dogs will have more clinical signs than in the winter. And actually, it was interesting because the time frame of the crisis was not the perfect parallel of the pollen season. It was more due to the variation of humidity and temperature in the atmosphere. So more and more, we think that some environmental element like humidity, temperature can be very important in the evolution of the disease. So I explained that to the owner, and I think that it's the same that we can observe in ourselves. If you have eczema or atopic skin, you can see that in some season, like autumn, for instance, for a certain person, like for me, I can scratch myself more than the rest of the year. So this is it. And for the water, if the dog likes to go and in the sea or to bathe outside, it's okay. Huh? You just have to wash it after. Actually, we have some studies that show that the fact that the dog will go in the forest, in the mud, in the outside, it will help the immune system to be more tolerant to some allergen. It will stimulate the immune system in a tolerating way, and it might be a cause of or an explanation of the fact that dogs that live in the city, in the pollution with a lot of irritating factor, can be more prone to atopy than dogs that live in the countryside.
How interesting. I didn't know that. Thank you. And in terms of, let's talk about those issues within cities or even within homes. What are some of the things that owners should be aware of that might be setting their dog off and causing irritation that's actually happening inside the house rather than outside?
So inside the house, what you shouldn't do is smoking. Not good for you, and not good for the for the furniture, and not for your dog and cat. We observe that some animals are very sensitive to that, and it can cause reaction. Be careful with all the essential oil diffuser. All the perfume that can be used in your house, candles, stuff like this. It can be a source of allergy in cats and dogs. Other than that, of course, it's important to have a good hygiene inside. So clean with products that are not irritating. Vacuuming your house can be a good stuff, especially if the dog is allergic to house dust mite, because we know that by vacuuming, usually it will help. And also opening the window to renew the air will help your animal. Other than that, it's okay. I think it's kind of common sense. It's like for us, so what you apply for you can apply for your dog inside your house.
So how often would you say, because perhaps people don't do it as regularly as they should be washing bedding and the areas that they sleep? What would you recommend, and how would they go about it?
It can be once a month, but I would recommend that it would be once a week. Especially because it will help to decrease the allergen burden, like house dust mite, of course. If you have any flea infestation, it will remove all the eggs and the larvae of fleas, because the fleas, for instance, they love to lay eggs just around the dog, so specifically on the bed of the dog. So if you wash it really often, it will help. And also, as we said, for the shampoo, the fact that you will find allergens all around the dog in the bedding, if you want to remove it, the best way is to clean it very often. Sometimes some people, when the dog is allergic to house dust mite, they will use a spray that will either kill the house dust mite before they wash it, or there is another product that is very cool. It's a spray with house dust mite pheromone that will attract the house dust mite, and you will attract the house dust mite on a towel. So you vaporize the product on the towel, you put the towel on the bed of the dog. With the pheromone, all the house dust mite will come on the towel, and then you put the towel on the washing machine, and it will kill all the house dust mite. So you need to do that several times, of course, but it can help.
And can you talk about the importance of managing the environment if you know that your pet has, and you skip that tick and flea treatment, your pet has had an infestation, about not just treating them, about managing the environment and how owners would go about doing that?
Usually when you have flea infestation on your dog, like you find 1 or 2 fleas, well, usually the fact that you will treat your dog will treat the problem. because the fleas, they won't be looking for another host. They will keep on going on the dog. And so by going on the dog and by feeding with blood that has an antiparasitic, they will die, and that's it. But if there is a lot of parasites, sometimes it can be a very problematic issue, like a nightmare. So you have to vacuum it, and you sometimes have to ask for professional to come and to put some insecticides in the house. So this is a very strict protocol, and you have to ask professional to do that. But before going in this extremity, sometimes you can only use some product that you will apply on your environment. You can find it in the veterinarian clinic, and you have two kind of products. One kind is insecticides, and there is another kind of product that are not insecticide. It's like a spray with silicone that will surround the insect, so the parasite, and that will kill the insect because the insect breathes by its skin. So if you put silicone around the skin of the insect, it won't be able to breathe anymore and he will die. So it's kind of a good option because it's less toxic than insecticide, and especially if you have kids or other pets or other animal or plants, it can be a good option.
That's so interesting. I didn't know about that product. I'm going to look into it. So you obviously are a specialist, so you often see cases that us GPs have tried everything, and we've got to the point where we've reached the limit of what we either know or are able to assist owners with. But when owners first notice that itching, they're going to go generally to their GP vet.
Yes.
What are some of the things that we would be doing in a consult room that are normal, and some of the measures we may be taking that owners should be aware of, rather than thinking, that we're trying to generate sort of money from this? Because I know that itchy skin consults can be very expensive exercises.
Actually, that's true. One of the main complaints of the people when they come to my consultation is that at least you find the problem. My veterinarian, he was just interested in taking my money, blah blah blah. And usually, I think that it's sometimes a problem of communication and of time, because for me, it's easy. The first consultation is 1 hour long. And usually in general practitioner, I think that it's way shorter because you have to deal with every kind of disease, and everything is shorter in terms of consultation. So what I give, or what I say is that the skin disease are chronic. Usually it's chronic, it's repetitive, it's recurrent. So I explain to people that it's normal to go to the vet, and it's normal to go back to the vet, and it's normal to have the feeling that they spend a lot of money in this kind of disease, because it's true. And it's like when you have an atopic dermatitis or an eczema as a human, this disease won't treat it by itself, or if you take medicine, it will heal the symptoms, but it won't treat the disease. So I think that the problem of communication from the vet, between the vet and the owner, is maybe the fact that sometimes we don't take enough time to explain the disease properly and completely, and specifically to say the name of the disease, and to say that, okay, we know that this is this disease, for instance, the atopic dermatitis, and we know that we won't treat this disease. We will only alleviate the symptoms. We will treat the crisis, the flares, and we will try to manage it for the long time, but we will see each other many times. So it might be interesting to explain that from the beginning, because otherwise it generates frustration, incomprehension, and people have the bad feeling that they didn't have any diagnosis and they just spend their money, and that at the end the dog is still ill.
That's a good point. We understand sort of the frustrations, because we feel frustrated too, because it's a
Yes.
terrible thing. Even us as vets, as owners of pets, we know how awful it can be if you've got a pet at home that is over grooming or itching or red or uncomfortable, because it's such a visual thing that we understand people's anxiety around trying to get a diagnosis and manage it, and it's not always, as you said, it's not something that necessarily will resolve fully. It's something that you have to work very hard to try and deal with. So when do you often see these cases? Is this when owners have got fed up with their GP vet and said, or are these cases where referring vets say, there's got to be more to this, please can you assist? Because we are very fortunate now that we have got medication available to us that can assist, newer medications that have helped us. But when do you tend to see these cases?
Actually, there are several types of situation. So I have more and more general practitioner that very shortly in the course of the disease send the people to me. Like, okay, I'm sure that there is a chronic skin disease, so I prefer that you deal with it since the beginning, and then I can deal with the rest of the treatment. And if something is going wrong, you can help me again. So that's the first situation. It's the best one. Second is when the general practitioner is in like failure, in the treatment, or he's not sure about the diagnosis, so he send me the patient for help. And most of the time, people are very happy that we can work together with the general practitioner and that we are a good team. And there is the other situation when people come directly to me and they are not sent by the general practitioner because they need a new eyes on the problem and a second thought about the disease. And sometimes that's complicated for them because at that point they are very frustrated. They have already spent a lot of money. Sometimes they are discouraged. I have several cases where people arrive and say, can you explain or can you save the dog because it's the last chance? And you can feel that, yes, for the dog is the last chance, and you don't want to know what's happening next if you cannot solve the problem. So yes, I have all this kind of situation for when people arrive. For me, what is very comfortable is the fact that when people arrive to me, they made they are willing to solve the problem, and they are willing to invest in the good treatment, in the good diagnosis tools. So for me, it's easier to assess this problem. Whereas for the general practitioner, I think it's very difficult because people arrive with the problem and you are supposed to solve it in very quickly, very easily, and with no money, because you should be doing that for free, So I can understand the frustration, because when you love your animal, you don't want to see it suffer for too long. And with skin disease, you can see the suffering, the scratching, the lesion, and it's repetitive, it's all day long. And so it can be a really important burden for the owner. So yes, I think that situation can be complicated to deal with when you're a general practitioner. And as a specialist, for me, it's easier to propose some different treatment diagnostic tool and to convince people to invest money in that.
Absolutely. I mean, I would love us at some point, because I know that we're running out of time, but I would love us at some point to have a deeper discussion about what that looks like, for owners to deep dive into some of these conditions and to explore the kind of workup and the kind of treatment strategies.
Of course.
If we could do that at some point, that would be amazing. But I think that this has been such a great opportunity just to kind of get an all-rounded view of itchy skin and why it's not easy, even from a specialist, to explain some of the complexities. And really, to start off with your vet and to try and work with them to manage, but also to prevent some of these things from a very early start. The preventative healthcare is so critical, and the nutrition, and you've taken us through all of those. Yes. I'm really, really grateful for those. And so if people want to get hold of you, if they want to follow you, you are obviously active on social media, which is wonderful, and you give a lot of advice on there. You discuss some cases, which I think is so, so great, because it gives people an insight into some of the things that you're dealing with as a specialist. Where can they find you?
They can find me in France. Yes. Now that specifically, I work in a private practice near Paris. So and also in the like 1 hour of Paris. But most of my time, my schedule are in a big clinical. It's like a private hospital. It's called Advisia, and it's near Paris. And I work there almost 4 or 5 days a week. And they can find me also on social media, on Instagram. And yes, and that's it. Yes.
That's wonderful. And just my final closing question, what is the best piece of advice for owners who are starting the journey of now managing a chronic skin issue?
Best advice? I would say maybe to be patient and to keep hope when you feel a bit despair about that kind of disease. And the best tip I could give is to wash your dog. It can sound a bit silly, but so many times, so many cases, I have solved them with topical treatment. So sometimes you just have to prevent parasitic disease and to clean your dog with good product, and then you see.
That's excellent. And for those people with cats who struggle and say there's no way I can shampoo them, what's the best way of trying to deal with that?
For that, it's of course it's complicated when you need to give a treatment, like a lifelong treatment. So I would recommend that instead of seeing the treatment as a bad moment, you can try to alleviate the burden by playing with the dog, by giving treats, making a good moment of the treatment. Because if you have to give a treatment every day, it's important that your dog will be okay for that. And one of the big issue in dermatologic treatment, because it's lifelong treatment for chronic disease, is the compliance and the observance. So if it's not easy to give the medicine properly because the dog is not okay with that, or because you perceive that it is stressful for the animal, it won't work. So make it easy, or create a good moment around it with treats, for instance. It can help a lot.
Oh, that's really great advice. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time and for taking us through that. Like I said,
You're welcome.
There are so many directions we can take even within this complex topic.
Yeah,
so
thank you very
I know
much.
We've just scratched the surface. It was wonderful, and it was really, really great to get some insight into some of your advice on it. So thank you very much for taking time out of your day. I know you're a very busy man, but it's been lovely chatting. A huge thank you to Dr. Amaury for sharing his experience on itchy skin and pets. Skin disease can be such a challenge, but as we've heard today, there's a lot that owners can do alongside their vets to make life more comfortable for their companions. If your pet is struggling with ongoing skin issues, speak to your vet about the next steps. And remember, specialists like Dr. Amaury are there to support you when cases need advanced care. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with another pet owner. Subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review so we can continue bringing you expert advice from across the veterinary world. Goodbye for now. Welcome back to Just for Pets. You're with Dr. Cara.
Hi, Doc. It's Justin the Jack Rossi here, and boy am I itchy.
Are you on a hypoallergenic diet?
Hyper what now?
Changing to a special diet will really help. And Just for Pets have a massive range. And flea and tick medication, special shampoo.
Ooh, how quick can you get some?
Order today and we'll deliver pronto.
I feel better already.
Justforpets.co.za. Vet approved, pet adored. Gets it all to your door.